like to welcome everyone to the Springboro Board of Education meeting on Tuesday, July 21st, 2015. Make a roll call.
Regano.
Here.
Petroni.
Here.
Malone. Anderson.
Here.
Stuckey.
Here.
I have the pledge of allegiance. Everyone will stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1.2, adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Regano.
Yes.
Petroni.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Stuckey.
Yes.
Passes. Item 1.3, approval of the July 7th, 2015 meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Sorry. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call.
I'm sorry, I have a comment.
Go ahead.
On July 7th, I made a motion to amend those minutes, and my motion included the full text of Mr. Petroni's, what's it, June 4th statement, is that what it was? And that did not, the full text of my motion didn't appear in the minutes. And so the minutes as they are aren't accurate, unless we, I think that it might be best just to attach
So the
the
motion.
statement to my motion.
Okay. There was a motion, but it failed for a lack of a second, is that?
That's right, it was not seconded.
Okay. So we should reflect that.
I can reflect the fact that there was a motion and no second, but
And that you did, but my motion included the full text of the
right,
statement.
but that's the thing is because it wasn't a second, then you can't attach what you were making the motion for because the motion never went through.
No, my motion was to amend the minutes with Mr. Petroni's statement, which reads as follows.
Right.
And I included that full text because we couldn't get to an agreement where we would just attach his statement on June 4th. So I made a motion that included the full text of his statement.
Well, we have a discrepancy then, because I wouldn't consider that as part of the motion. To amend the motion was the motion without the full text, is how I would have read that, but.
Well,
we could.
it was my motion, and I made it, and I'm telling you that the motion included the whole 9 yards.
Right, but that's
Because
the thing is when you do a motion, your motion is only a motion for an action. It's not a motion
Right, and
with
it
a
was
bunch of dialogue after.
it was, I grant you, it was a long motion.
It was, and that's not.
And so, just because, I just think it's common courtesy that we would attach that to the June 4th minutes, but we couldn't get to that agreement. And so I read the whole thing as a motion.
So this one just says on here, it's the subject in our board policy, 0168, it just says the minutes are to include the subjects being considered. So the subject being considered was a motion to amend the minutes.
No,
Since I'm,
if we were to find out otherwise, we'd be glad to.
well, yeah, I think the minutes must reflect the accurate record, and the accurate record was the motion that was entered, which is not in the minutes. And many of our minutes in this meeting are not showing the accuracy of the record. There's just an action and a motion. So I wasn't here. Most of the minutes that are of record are not more than the statement of the vote and the item. There's not a detailed debate that is captured in the minutes, which under ORC code requires that to occur.
No.
That's actually not true.
It's not
It says
Why?
the minutes are only supposed to reflect what was voted on and the actions taken, not a full word by word of what happened. That's why we videotape them so that people can get that word by word, but that's not what the intentions of the minutes are. And I even got a legal opinion to ask. So.
You're quoting Robert's rules, but Robert's rules also say when the minutes are published that a summary or if available, a verbatim record of the proceedings should be included. And our meetings are unquestionably published, our minutes are unquestionably published. And
Those are
so
just the action.
you're reading the first part of the section, but you're not reading the following part of the section. That's okay, we can vote on it, Mr. Anderson.
Well, I think we just, yeah. So, roll call.
Regano,
No.
Petroni,
Abstain?
Anderson,
Yes.
Stuckey,
Yes.
Item 1.4, approval of July 10th special meeting minutes.
Motion fails, correct, based on majority of 3.
Oh, I didn't hear.
I believe there was some action that occurred recently that it takes 3 people to pass unless this action.
Well, it depends on what
It
the
depends. I'll have
item
to
is,
go
but
back and look.
if you want to reconsider that.
No, I'm not, I can't vote, I wasn't here. Or I vote against it because the minutes don't accurately reflect the record.
Is there a motion on item 1.4, approval of the special meeting minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second? Roll call.
Well, just a question on those two. There was an item in those minutes that approved the $8,000 supplemental contracts. And Mr. Petrie had left, I wasn't at the meeting, couldn't make that one. But Mr. Petrie had left me a voice message saying that he was not going to include those. I just want to make sure that the minutes are accurate based on the conversation that we had, that you were not going to include those.
Include what?
The $8,000 supplemental contracts. You
No.
had left me a voicemail saying that those were going to be pulled from the agenda.
They were going to be
Special
pulled
meeting.
and separated. We separated all of them out so they could be voted on individually.
I misunderstood. And again, what's the reason for the $8,000 supplementals for those administrators? And
Yes,
Why
that's,
why can't that be included in the administrator's other duties?
Well, number one, the work coordinator, it is something that someone else has to do. And our 3 administrators, Mr. Pennell, our treasurer, and we have fewer administrators than we've ever had in the district. So to act like we're not doing this or whatever, that's one thing. I've looked at how it was done in the past, and I've also asked the ESC to give us a price. We're spending $24,000 for all 3. Just to have the one Lee Vincent does is $37,000. For the CCIP, they told me it'd be cheaper for them to do our curriculum, so we could do it ourselves, which is $60,000. In John's, they're estimating it's 45 days, and I'm yet to get on that. So we can spend $100,000. That's better.
So why are these supplemental contracts as opposed to not included in the regular duties?
Because they're not part of the regular duties. John is business manager, he's not a testing coordinator.
Right.
The treasurer is not the CCIP coordinator, and Mrs. Vincent doesn't do the separate job that's required for that evening work. That's not in their job
And
description.
they've paid these supplementals in the past
Yeah.
because they weren't part of some of these regular dues. This isn't new. This
No.
is the same thing. It's just
Well, we
different
did it
people.
last year. I voted against it
And
last
before
year
that, it was
because.
last year before
But
that.
how are they supposed to
I
get
don't-
it done, Jim? When I was a principal here, we had a
Are you
testing
saying you don't
coordinator.
have time to do them otherwise? So
Correct.
that this is time outside of the
It is
regular
time
business day?
outside of their regular business day.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, if you'd like to see when these people swipe in and out, John comes in at 4 a.m. during testing season.
Roll call.
Regano,
Abstain?
Petroni,
Abstain?
Anderson,
Yes.
Stuckey,
Yes.
And moving on to 2.1, Springboro Education Association report. Is there any report? 2.2, Springboro Classified Employees Association report. Doubt if there's any report. And then public participation, no one has requested to speak. Item 3.1, approval of the June 2015 financial statements. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, if I may. For the record and the minutes, I'd like them to reflect, if I'm understanding the spending plan, which is the actual year end, that reflected I think, there's 2 numbers here, I'm thinking it's a negative $2.509738 million in excess spending over revenue. Am I reading this correctly?
That's what the 5-year forecast estimated, and the actuals came in at the 2,414,000, so slightly lower.
So,
Yeah,
thank
so we
you.
have the-
Am I also then reading for the record and the minutes to reflect that it appears the district received about $1.1 million more in revenue based on the revenue analysis you provided of $45,427,667?
Some of it's not new revenue, if you remember.
I didn't ask
last-
that. I didn't ask if there's.
Then no, that's not correct. We didn't receive any more revenue. We moved money from the 009 school fees account into the general fund. That was about 475,000 of that revenue. So no, that's not new revenue. That's revenue that used to be posted to the 009 and is now posted to the 001. But it's not new revenue because the expenses are now being spent out of the 001. Whereas before, when the revenue went into the 009, the expenses came out of the 009 fund. Now, both revenue and expenses are coming out of the general fund. So no, it's not exactly.
So we spent, is it accurate to say that we spent we received $44,325,683 according to the chart you presented to the public on the revenue history in 2014? Is that accurate?
In 2014?
I'm reading this chart,
Yes.
this number.
In 2014, our revenue was at 44,613,000, or that's.
325,683 according to
Yeah,
this
I've got
chart.
it. But yes, that was 14, but when you're looking at 14 to 15, what you're saying and what's actually correct are not the same thing.
Then the record is not accurately reflecting to the public because it
No,
says
that's not true
45.
either.
I'm asking if we had $45,420,767 in revenue in 2015.
In fiscal 15, we received $45,420,767. Of that money, about $475,000 of it used to be posted into our 009 funds that are still within our school district's books. Now they're being posted to the 001. So when you look at fiscal 14's revenue of $44,325, that right there did not have that school fees money because it used to be posted to a different fund.
And was that fund a revenue fund or an expense fund?
It was both a revenue and expense fund.
So did the revenue come from a source that we've always had coming into the district?
Yes.
So we received $45,420,767 in revenue.
And of that 45
I heard you,
yes.
but that's what we received.
Yes, that's what we received
And
this year.
and that is $1.1 million more over last year less, whatever number you'd like to reflect, which is not accurately shown to the public as a negative or positive.
It's not that it's accurately or not accurately being shown. The 5-year forecast and the numbers that you get
I'm looking at
here
accurate right now. I'm not
are
looking at 5-year
general
forecasts.
fund numbers.
I'm not looking at, we're just talking about accurate, I'm just talking about year-end balances now.
Right, but
That's all
the
we're talking about.
balances though
Is there a reason why we have to argue with me? My first board meeting back, and I'm really just trying to ask questions for the record?
Right, you're asking questions, but then you're basically saying that I'm not accurately reflecting our finances.
I'm
and
not
that's
saying that at
true.
all. You're giving me an explanation that is not of record.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just asking you if that's the money, and you're saying, no, it's not, because there's other things, but that looks like the money that you're representing to the public. That's all
Okay.
I'm asking for
Okay.
clarification. And you're saying, no, it's not accurate. I did not make that statement, you did. So I'm just
I
trying to...
didn't say it wasn't accurate. I said what you're trying to state and what's accurate are not the same thing. You're saying we got $1.1 million more revenue this year than we did last year, and I tried to explain to you that of that $1.1 million, $475,000 of it is actually not new revenue. It's revenue the district did receive last year that was posted to a different fund
School fees?
than what, yes, school fees.
So we got
voted on that.
$700,000. So we got $700,000.
And $260,000 of it was the catastrophic cost reimbursement that I told you I applied for this year, which the district has not received in the past.
For the record, you knew the school fees were coming in. That going into general fund and no longer into the 09. And number two is deficit spending. That happened while you guys were running the Budget and Finance Committee, and you told me that was an investment.
Well, I'm not talking about the past. We're talking about right
Nobody
now.
just mentioned we're spending more than we have. It's called deficit spending. We knew that the only board member in the 4 years I've been here that ever brought that up was Kelly Coles.
Again,
So that's what I'm asking.
again, it's amazing how you want to argue with me. The facts
No,
of-
we just want the facts out there.
I am going to put the facts. The facts in the previous 2 years, there was the balance, fund balance did not go negative, but $300,000 in 2014. So you can look at the actuals and you can just look at them and show that. I'm just trying to get clarity right now because I voted against every forecast since this new board came here. I voted against all of them. I quit the Budget and Finance Committee because of the direction, because there was no communication. So I did that because I was not comfortable with the direction. I'm just trying to get the public to see that the revenue did go up some in 2015, and that the excess over revenue, if you look at these charts, was 3 times that.
Well, there was communication.
You
We
can look-
just
I'm not
had it
talking
in
about
the
communication.
actual expenses.
In 2014, is it accurate to say that the revenue was 44,325,683? The answer was yes. In 2014, is it accurate to say the expenses were 44,613, a difference of $300,000? In 2013, the expenses were 42,357 versus 43 million. We gave, now that comes off the backs and heels of our staff who, before my time, committed to a contract. We, in 2014, rectified that. So all I'm trying for the record to reflect is that the actual expenditures to revenue in 2012, 2013, and 2014 with raises was de minimis. That's all I'm saying, and I'm just trying to point out that the actual expenditure delta now in 2015, actual, not forecast, nothing else, the actual numbers, there's a large 300% difference in expense. That's all I'm trying to get to, which is of record. That is here in the paper.
If the actual expenses would have been included,
If the actual expenses are included, they're of record right here.
And basically, I see what you're saying, David, and the only thing I can comment to that is that when everything was approved to set off this great plan,
We're talking about actual expenses. I'm not
Yes,
talking about
and
your propaganda.
actually,
You guys have a good propaganda, you guys have a good
There
propaganda.
is no propaganda. I was new here.
It's
What do I
your
have?
You have a
What's,
propaganda campaign.
Whoa.
what's my
see,
investment
now
in
you're the
that?
one in front of the camera trying to lead our community to believe we're lying.
Exactly.
We are not lying. We'll pull out the facts now if you'd like.
I'm not lying.
You had 180,000 in athletics, and you knew athletics cost 355.
This is the
That's
budget.
$875,000 that weren't in the expenses of the
budget.
5-year forecast.
And
I'm sure it
that's
looked
the
good when you
actual.
were
From
doing it.
budget actuals to expenditures.
Exactly.
That's
That's
all
what's
this
being
is.
spent. So
That's
when
all
you
this
see
is.
the numbers that you say
This
are
is-
going up, which are going up, that's from the textbook adoptions, that's from the
These are the
technology, that's
budget
from the back-end
actuals.
technology. Those are going to make expenses increase when you approve a whole bunch of new plans that cost money. Expenses will increase.
Plans were approved in 2012.
They were approved in 2013 and it didn't come to fruition until 2014. And I can show that, and I have.
The numbers are there.
I know they are. The actuals show that we were relatively balanced in 3 years, and now we're not.
And we didn't follow the union contract of adding 10% in, and there was nothing in there for salaries and benefits.
Thank you for the indulgence.
87%.
Thank you for the indulgence, Mr. President. I apologize for
Yeah,
that.
the facts are the facts.
They are.
So-
I have a question.
Yes.
In the budget to actual report, the ending cash balance that we're showing, year-end cash balance for 15 is $8.3 million.
Yes, it's $95,000
And
higher.
then the cash flow reconciliation report has a balance of 14.7 million. And I'm not sure I understand
The cash balance is the
difference.
$8,368,000. I'm looking at it right here. It's $8,368,436 for our cash flow.
right.
And then what are you looking at?
Well, the cash flow, you labeled it cash flow report, but on the actual report, it calls itself the reconciliation report.
That's because that's all funds and the cash flows are just general fund.
Okay, so the difference of $5.4 million, what is that
I'm
cash?
not following you. Where are you looking at for the 11 million?
14.7 million is the bottom line cash balance.
Yes, 14.7 million is all funds. That represents our 004 fund, our energy conservation fund that we have not spent out. That includes our food service fund. That includes any 019 funds, any grant funds. Those include all of the funds that the district has in total. The rest of your reports are just general fund because that's what the 5 years based off of.
But we can't use a lot of the other
Right,
funds.
those other monies are restricted, so I can't spend those. So what you look at on the budget to actual and those things, those are our general fund, that's what the 5 years based off of. When you see the reconciliation, that's all of our other monies total that we have in the district.
Okay, so things like the, I guess, the food service fund, we're reserving for food service
Yeah.
and equipment and those kinds of things.
Yeah,
The
they're
grant
budget.
funds, presumably are
They're-
available to be used and will be used sometime through the year.
Mhm. They're just really specific on what you can use them for, so
But in theory, they would offset other
they
uses.
do offset, yes, some of our salaries and
So
supplies.
I guess what I'm trying to get a feel for is how much of that 14.7 million is actually available.
Basically just our general-
I understand, I may not be explaining myself well, but the food service part, restricted to food service, we've talked about, can we charge the food service program utilities or something like that to reclaim some of that? We've had that discussion before. But setting that kind of thing aside, where we're saying that those funds are fenced, I mean, it seems like the grant monies are more, if you will, fungible. How much of the 14.7 million is
If you-
those types of funds?
Do you see the content piece when you look at that on the Word docs? Do you see where it shows the reconciliation sheet? If you slide down, it actually has a fund by fund balance of every fund we have that totals up 14 million. So you can see, for instance, 3.2 million is our 002 bond retirement fund. That's where we pay our debt payments out of, so we can't touch that because that's where we pay our debt out of. We have 268,000 in our master facilities bond retirement. That's also another 002 fund.
Can I
We can't
ask a
touch.
question? Ms. Floyd, what report are you looking at? I'm sorry, I'm just
It's
trying to
under
keep
the
up with you.
content piece, and it's under the, let's see, it's under the cash flow report, June 2015. And then once you click on that, the top page says reconciliation.
Mhm.
And then as you scroll down, you see the investment spreadsheet, and then cash flow analysis, and then that's where it shows a fund-by-fund analysis of every dollar we have in, and that actually shows you everything. It shows you month-to-date, fiscal year-to-date receipts, month-to-date and fiscal year-to-date expenditures, our current fund balance, encumbrances, and then our unencumbered balance is basically our current fund balance is our basic cash, the 14 million, but then we have encumbrances off of that of bills that still haven't been paid yet. So you can see a fund-by-fund balance of exactly how much money we have in each one of those funds.
Just since you pointed me to this question, I noticed that the last 5-year forecast removed the budget reserve. Is there a reason why the 019412 still shows
I
it?
still have it split out. I have it split out on our books. It's not required anymore to be split out on our 5-year, but I do have our books still split out that way.
So is it a reserve or is it not a reserve?
I mean, it's a reserve, but I mean, it's where we're not held harmless if we have to use it in order to not go into the negative fiscally, but,
Is there a definition of reserve that has a different accounting purpose?
no, it used to be the 5-year required it, and now that it doesn't, we have it split out just because it's always been this exact dollar figure for the last several years. I mean, I think I looked back 10 years and it was still there, so I didn't collapse it or anything, I left it there. But obviously, if there's a need, and I'd have to come to the board and say, we would need to use that reserve, but
So that's my question. You actually have no authority to spend that reserve because it's been designated as a reserve under accounting practices.
under the account, yeah, I would, it's not that I don't have the authority, technically I could, but I would still come to the board first and ask if we needed to move that budget reserve into the general. And it's not required to by our books anymore either. The ORC changed that requirement. I just didn't collapse it in our books because it's always been a separate line, so I just left it. So now that that requirement's not law anymore, I could technically do it, it's just I don't have any need for that to do that.
So why not put it on the 5-year as a reserve?
It just, I mean, all it does is
Fund
take,
balance.
it just makes the fund balance, you have to look down farther on in different lines to see what the actual cash really is. Because it subtracts it from your cash balance.
Yeah, you're adding it versus subtracting it, which a reserve is technically not even being a
I mean,
cash
it's
balance.
technically our total cash is what I report, which is what it is, but if you want to try to hide it to say it's a savings account that we don't have, but I actually show it on the 5-year as our total cash because it is in fact our total cash.
Yeah, well, I don't think it was ever hidden on the 5-year forecast. There was always a separate line
Right,
there
it
that
does
said 1
subtract
million
it.
reserve, and then there was a line below
Right.
it that had.
Right, but it
the
just shows the cash balance, it shows your unreserved cash balance as lower because it subtracts your reserve.
Right.
When-
It basically labels it as not spendable.
Right. Right.
It's part.
So
But it's not required to not be spendable anymore. It used to be, which is why they did that. Now that it's not, most people have already taken it out of their 5-year because it's not a requirement anymore to keep it separate.
I guess I need to ask the question again. So under GAAP accounting principles, because the board years ago adopted a $1 million reserve,
Mhm.
and because you're still reflecting it, You said the board needs to take action to move that and close that account to the general revenue account.
We don't have to. I would come to the board, but we don't have to. And that's because even though the board passed that policy, it also states that it's basically whatever the code is. So you refer back to the code. So if the code changed to take that requirement away, then it's no longer a requirement.
Thank you.
Roll call? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Regano,
Yes.
Petroni,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Stuckey.
Yes.
Move on to item 4.1.
Yes, requesting approval of the 2016-17 school calendar, and this is the calendar that starts 8 days earlier. I'm pretty sure it's August 11th.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
August 11th. August 11th, really? When did they get out?
When?
23rd
May 23rd.
versus, was that June?
Oh,
6th?
yeah, June 9th, June 10th, what we were used to, so it'll be earlier. However much earlier we start, that much earlier we get out. But most districts are already
My
at
kids start the 12th.
Yeah, so does my son.
This year.
So
this
it's really,
year-
they're not summer, there's not really any summertime loss, you know, just because of the swing, it just was like this.
For 1 year, there's a 1 week from us, right?
4 days.
Okay, thank you.
Roll call?
Regano,
Yes.
Petroni,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Stuckey.
Yes.
Motion passes. Item 4.2.
Yes, requesting approval of the 2015-16 season pass fees, and these are the same as they've been in years past.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Regano,
Question. I pointed out, I think, I guess it was, must have been on the 7th, that we didn't have a family package rate. I won't call it a family pass because we've been through that, but in the past, there was a reduction in the cost if a family purchased passes together. And then I pointed out that in the side effects contract, we had promised in that contract to give any advertisers family passes. How did that discrepancy get resolved?
Yeah, we haven't
It hasn't
addressed anything with side effects yet, we're not at that point yet, but the passes are as they are, that's what we're bringing forward to vote on tonight. There's
So
not
no
pass.
family discount?
Whatever is here is what we've had since I've been superintendent. There's been no change to it, so no.
Roll call?
Regano,
Yes.
Petroni,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Stuckey.
Yes.
Motion passes. Item 4.3.
Yes, this is approval of the 2015-16 athletic game operations staff pay rates. Once again, they are the same.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Regano,
Yes.
Petroni,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Stuckey.
Yes.
Motion passes. Item 4.4, approval of out-of-state athletic trips. So, everybody's got a list of those in front of them. Is there a motion?
I'm sorry. Do we have the list in front of us?
It's, yeah, it's on board doc.
Okay.
You got it.
Yeah. And again, clarifying hockey says to be announced. We're not approving anything for hockey.
No.
We're not like, it's not a blank check, right? You bring us separately hockey when they decide
Yes.
what hockey's going to do.
Yeah, we will have to.
Right. Yeah, they're still in that process of trying to get all that together. They just got the certificate of insurance so that now they can apply back to the mid-states, and then the schedule will be set.
Well, I do think, for clarity, we should take hockey off of this list, because the implication is that the board is approving a hockey trip that's, not been decided where it is or the date of it. And so I guess I would suggest that we amend the motion to remove hockey.
Agreeable, just,
Sure.
so we'll just amend it, I mean, take it off. And then come back.
So you have to
when
vote on the
hockey's-
amendment?
When hockey's ready, then.
Okay.
Not that we don't want that to go.
Okay.
That's just our athletic director too, should
Okay.
take care of it. That has to be approved before they can, has to be approved by you all before they can take a trip.
So hockey will be on.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
And
so
you're-
the main motion was just changed to exclude hockey?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Do we have it? Jim, did you make the motion?
No, I did.
I think Dave, Mr. Stuckey did, and I seconded it, and I'm okay however you want to handle it with the amendment.
Roll call?
Regano,
Yes.
Petroni,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Stuckey.
Yes.
Motion passes. Item 5.1, approval of personnel items as presented.
Yes, correct.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions?
Yeah, we have a guidance counselor going from full-time to part-time,
Yes.
right? Can you explain that?
Yes, actually, we added a half-time person total at the high school, since this person wanted to go to part-time, and she technically was ready to fully resign, but she is an outstanding employee. We wanted to keep her, so we were able to do part-time, and instead of having to hire a full person, we were able just to hire a half a person. So keeping her there, long-term is a real benefit for us. Hopefully, she goes back full-time one of these days, but right now, it'll be part-time.
I understand the last board meeting, there was some discussion about related parties to board members. Are there any related parties on this? Any board members?
Jen Bohe is Dr. Malone's stepdaughter, and I actually hired Jen Bohe when I was principal here. We came to the district at the same time.
She's already an employee of the district.
Yes, has been, well, for 8, 9 years.
So we're not giving her a new contract, we're just, or what are we doing with her?
She's going to part-time from full-time. She was a teacher, now she's a counselor. Outstanding as well. She worked for Mason City Schools before she came to us.
Motion? Oh, we have. Roll call?
Regano,
Yes.
Petroni,
Yeah. Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Stuckey.
Yes.
Motion passes. Item
6.1.
6.1.
This is approval of the software license and support agreement with Illuminate Education. Ms. Strittenberger presented on this last time. One of the things we're going to do with this is keep track of all of our gifted students. Part of the D- that we had received in the past in gifted was for the simple fact that at the secondary level, we did not have the kids placed in the right classes. When we went to look at, so which one of our kids beyond 6th grade is gifted, there was no system to even manage that. We purchased a system last year for 1 year, and that company just, they got into it, couldn't complete everything, so now we're switching over to the Illuminate system. And we have to keep track of our gifted students to be able to receive the money.
Sorry. I'll move.
Second?
Second. Just a clarifying question, secondary is high school, correct?
That would be 7 through 12, yes. It's actually 6 through 12 in our district. I consider it 7 through 12.
Roll call?
Well, yeah, I actually have a problem with the contract. As I read through it, one of the things that this contract allows is for the company Illuminate, is that what it is? To share student data, or anonymized student data. And I don't know if you guys have been listening to the news lately, but there's major news stories about how the federal government is now going to use this data to determine whether or not districts are being fair in terms of how they assign services racially. And at any rate, I object to the notion that we're going to share any data with a third party. I understand that this company will have the data, but for them to go and share it with another party, I think is something that we need to exclude from this agreement. It ought not go any further than this company.
We have to be able to share it with the state, and to be perfectly honest, it would have been nice to have had that question before this, because we need this to be able to get, I mean, we have 2,000 kids at the high school, and we drive it out of this information to be able to make sure these kids are in the right spot, and that's how we're gonna get that information.
Well, if this
We have to
district
work
needs
along
to
with
share it
that.
with the state, that's fine. But this company should not be sharing our data with anybody. There's no reason why they should take our data, anonymized or not, and share it with a third party. If the data needs to be shared, we should share it, and not them. And I don't want to give them control, and there's two clauses in this agreement that gives them the authority to share data on their own, as long as they anonymize it with a third party. I don't think we ought to go there. They should have, we can just amend the agreement if you want to do that, but I object to the notion.
Mr. Regano, we can't, they have to be able to share it with the state. For the simple fact, I don't think we're able to take it ourselves and send it, because the state's looking at accuracy to make sure no one's fudging information. I mean, I get what you're saying, I understand, I don't want anyone's information shared either. Again, it would have been great to have had this question 2 weeks ago, so we could have had an answer now, because we have things we gotta get done.
I don't think we had the contract for the agreement back then. I think we talked about it, but I don't remember seeing the agreement. But if the data needs shared, we make the decision to share it, not the third party. Because it doesn't say who they can share. I mean, it just says that they can share the data with any third party as long as they anonymize the data. That's not acceptable to me. I think we need to control and protect our students' data.
I think, if I may, Mr. Regano and Mr. Petrie, I don't think Jim's saying they can't. I think the contract would just delete their unilateral authority to do it without asking us to disclose, and then the board, or maybe even, I guess the board, right, would make the decision that that's okay to share it with the state. It's on page 7, paragraph B. I don't think it's a big thing that would delay you from getting what you need, and I'd be happy to give you the authority to go ahead and move on that as it relates to not have to bring it back to the board, so long as you,
That would be very
as long
helpful.
as you control that, and if everybody's okay with Mr. Regano's suggestion of controlling our student data.
I'm fine to say to them,
Yeah.
it's not that we're not gonna share the student data, it just has to be approved by the board
Right, by
before you
us,
share it.
correct.
Yeah, it just basically says they accept to the extent it's been anonymized, so basically that sentence sort of subject to board approval.
They're gonna share it in large clumps, they won't use student names, is what they're saying, so.
Yeah, but I think I'm okay with amending the motion and approving it subject to deletion of the unilateral authority of this company to take the data and give it to Mr. Petrie and our
Yeah.
lawyer, if necessary, the ability to
Yeah.
finalize it to that extent.
That's fine. And I'll send out to you what we finalize.
Yep.
Yeah, the gist of that, so.
I
the motion
guess
is with that.
I want to make a formal
Amendment.
amendment so that we're crystal clear on this, that there shall be no third-party sharing of data without approval of the Springboro Board of Education.
The Board of Education or its employees.
Do
Board of
I,
Education.
what was that, John?
Well, I just had the question whether it's the Board of Education itself or the employees of the Board of Education.
So you
Board.
want, I think, I thought with.
I was agreeing with
Mr.
Mr.
Petroni
Re-
was, okay, go
I was
ahead.
agreeing with Mr. Regano's motion, but giving Mr. Petrie the authority to solve to his intent.
Yes,
So
that's
he-
what I would say.
Yeah, so Mr. Petrie, if he can solve it to Mr. Regano's intent, and we all agree to that intent, then Mr. Petrie doesn't have to come back to the board with the contract, as long as
Correct.
it meets that intent.
Is that fair?
Okay.
All right.
We need a second to my amendment, please.
Second.
Okay. So we'll vote on the amendment. I don't know that you're gonna be able to,
Yeah, I'll have to go
you
back.
just
and
kind of give us a gist of it.
see.
And I'll send out what we come up with, that's no problem.
Okay.
Is there any
So-
other paragraph? before you go?
Well, there's a couple paragraphs, but I think my amendment is clear that there will be no
Shall be
third
no
party, so there's no
Right.
sharing to third party without,
Or
Board's-
So we'll
Approval,
act on
so-
that one then, and if you have another comment?
no, that was
it?
my concern.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
So just say,
So
shall
let's-
be no third-party sharing of district student data without approval of the Board
from
of
the Board
Education.
of Education through Mr. Beecher.
Board of Education through Mr. Petrie, I think, Mr. Adams specifically.
I wanted to come back here. We're gonna share that data. This is gonna be, it's a relatively new news item, but I think it's gonna be a big deal. I think before the data escapes, it ought to come back here.
So we'll have a vote on, roll call on the amendment.
Get taken care of.
Regano? Yes, Regano.
Oh, yes.
Petroni?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Stuckey?
Yes.
Okay. And passes, we need to vote on the motion with that amendment.
Regano?
Yes.
Petroni?
I just wanted to be clear before I vote that you're clear that you have the authority to negotiate and bring it back. You don't need us to
The
say
bottom
that.
line is, the board will determine who we share our data with.
And you can handle that without us. You don't need to bring this back to us for board approval. You're clear that the motion, the
No, it
contract. you
shouldn't.
don't-
I'm going to send it out to you, what we've sent to them, and I'll probably copy you on the email we sent to the company. Not a problem.
Okay, okay.
We
I'll
should
say-
be, unless they just say, no, we won't do it, then
Okay.
they're going to pass up on money, I guess. Or is that work with someone else?
They'll figure it out. Okay, then I'll say yes. I just want to make sure you're clear.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you're-
Okay.
okay.
Anderson?
Yes.
Stuckey?
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes. Item 6.2, adoption of the government textbook,
Correct, yes.
which we discussed last week.
We discussed last week, yes.
Last meeting.
I think Ms. Strinberger sent out all the comments.
Right. Yeah, we all got copies of that. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second.
I have,
Discussion?
yeah, this board spent a good amount of time on the amendment of adoption of textbooks policy 2510. And I was frustrated during that process because we had a set of recommended directions. And this commentation is not in any way to say the process was wrong or right, or that the textbook's right or wrong, because I unfortunately have not had a chance to read the textbook. I'm focusing on process, which is something I did in 2012, back to the policies. And so I just pulled the summary form, and I may have missed more information, but that's what was on the public record today, so I'm responding to the public record. And I then pulled the policy, and there's A through I. And I don't want to get into the weeds, but I can't find A through F where there's a commentary in this recommended summary survey form that this adoption meets this board policy, which this board, which I voted against, adopted or readopted this year. So I'm only going about your majority to say that you guys seemed this was important. I was important to it, except for this thing about free from bias. I wanted it to be accurate. That's all I wanted, and it didn't get there. But there's none of this that I see in commentary. So I'm struggling to approve this recommendation based on this policy that I think we spent a lot of time on, unless there's something else that gives me these answers, which is a board, I assume the board policy is relevant to be followed for adoption process. That's why we spent so much time on it this year.
I can explain. Ms. Strinberger mentioned at the meeting that the book was brought to us late. That the process that had been used in the past, a lot of times books were purchased, perhaps not approved by the board, but brought late. So due to the fact that we have to have this book, and if we don't get it approved tonight, we're not going to have this book when school starts for the kids. They'll go 2 or 3 weeks without this textbook. So bottom line is, in order to make it to where the community gets a voice in the books that we purchase. We did have the evenings to where people were able to view these. We had multiple people come into central office, check the book out, read it, made notes. We gave all the feedback back to the board, which is the bulk of what that policy is about.
Well-
So the issue is, that yes, the book was brought forward late based on how things have been done in the past. Unfortunately, we need to have the book done because we have to basically replenish the books that are already, I think they're like 20 years old. We're spending about $200 a book. So it made no sense to do that. And I think at that point, the board was like, well, then as long as we went through these things, and the community's had some input to get some direction, then we're good with it.
Yeah, I understand that, Mr. Petrie, and I beg to differ. The board policy is what the community put these elected members to administer, and these members, outside of myself, voted for this policy. And I'm just trying to, again, bring us back, which I started in 2012 and 2013, to bring the board back to the importance of policy. I recognize time, and I hear that reason. I've heard that reason over the years more than not, that we have to make a quick decision, and if we don't, the world's going to fall. And I'm not doubting you that the world's going to fall, but I will vote no, not because of the integrity of the book, but because of the integrity of what I believe is so important to you as a board member and to us as a board member, that this policy is what dictates our district. And that's where I'll stand. I'm not saying negative or positive to the people who put it together or all the effort. I'm just saying that as it relates to process, I hope future board members try to follow process as well, because there is relevance and importance to you, as your control and mechanisms are only through policy. So however that works in life, let my record be stated clearly that I'm voting no because of the process, not I just voted no.
David, process, the board can not follow their policies when they choose, like the Borough Festival.
I don't want to have a
We
debate
have-
on it, Mr. Chairman,
Well,
Mr. President.
no.
I'm just letting you know what I'm
The
doing.
picture again is being painted that the
I'm just
employees
letting
did
you.
something.
No, I'm not. I already said that
The
in the
employees
beginning.
explained to the board, and they chose to implement the policy the way they so choose. And it was discussed in the last work session.
I'm glad, and I already opened up that this is not in any way saying anything about the staff, and you always turn me there. I'm sitting there saying that the policy is clear, and I'm asking that we adopt it by policy. If the rest of the board doesn't want to, that's fine.
Kids are the ones that lose on this.
There is no loss. We keep putting all these statements of
They need a book, they
drama.
won't.
If
They used a book last year, I presume.
And we don't have enough of that book right now. That's
The,
what I'm saying. We're gonna have 200 more kids in our high school this year.
I'm not saying don't buy the book, I'm just saying the policy, there's probably easy ways that Ms. Dalbert and her team can get it to policy centric.
I'm just advising you on the implications of your decision.
It's my,
Any other
that's fine.
comments?
Thank you for your
Yeah,
advice.
I commented on the book some last meeting, I guess on the 7th. And I have a problem with some of the presentation in the book. I think that, again, in fact, I did a little bit of research on the AP government class, and it turns out Texas has insisted that the Texas American government curriculum be used instead of the AP government curriculum, because Texas believes that the AP curriculum is biased in a liberal way and does not represent the American values that traditionally we have all learned. And I kind of see that in this book too. And I pointed out a couple things last time, but I didn't go through my entire list, and I'm not going to do that here either. But when the book comes out and it presents that the purpose of government and the reason that students should be engaged in government is so that they can make sure they get their share of the benefits. I mean, that's not why people need to participate in government. They need to do it because it's their civic responsibility, but that's not the way this book presents it. They almost pit students against, or young people against elderly, suggesting that elderly vote in mass because they're out there to protect their interests in things like Social Security. Government's not about what benefits we can get. It's about securing people's rights. And that concept just doesn't come up in the book. Another example, they cast the founders as being very self-interested. And that they knew that this government would benefit the rich. Well, the founders had a blank slate. they would not have put all of these restrictions, checks, balances, and all that stuff if they were out there to secure their own future. And so that's just false on its face, but those are the kinds of things that are presented in this book. And I think that young students, I mean, even seniors in high school, are impressionable to these kinds of things. And I just think we could find a book that better represents traditional American values. And so I'm not going to support adoption of the book.
So if I'm hearing this correctly, we've got one board member who, although, and Mr. Petroni, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you said you don't want to get into the weeds, but you're not going to vote for this book because every letter of the policy wasn't followed in your estimation, correct?
Yes, sir.
We've got another board member who's not going to vote for this motion for a new book because you have philosophical differences with and believe it has a liberal slant. So we're not going to, I don't know how Mr. Suki's going to vote, but quite possible we won't have approval on a new textbook for students.
Correct.
Okay.
So we will bring it back on August 11th. If not, we'll try to have another board meeting sooner than that, which we'll have to pay each member to be here to be able to hopefully get this approved, because this is, I don't think there's any one book, Mr. Anderson, that we're going to bring that everyone agrees on. So I think this, from a lot of people's perspectives, I've read the Facebook quotes, whatever. Some people feel like it's both sides, which is gives people kids a broad opinion to make a choice. So nonetheless, we do need a book because we don't have enough of the book that we have, because we're going to have the largest high school we've had. So the kids are going to be worn without the book here. That's it.
Okay. Roll call?
Regano,
No.
Petroni,
No.
Anderson,
Yes.
Stuckey.
Yes.
Doesn't pass. So we'll move on to board member comments. Mr. Spicky, do you have any comments?
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Petroni?
I didn't come to the board meeting intending to have any comments, but it's just not a very pleasant experience when I continually come as a elected official to have argumentative debates, which I've been asking for the last year and a half. It's rather frustrating when I try to demonstrate to the public and give the information that's available in minutes that are unclear, in documents that are unclear, and to be challenged by, constantly being challenged by my decisions and my statements and recommendations. There's no intent that I have to be divisive nor controversial. Unfortunately, there seems to be a large movement to create that position for some sort of different agenda. It's unfortunate. I hope the community sees clearly through the realities of budget versus actual, and when you dig down into the transparency, that you'll make the right decisions in the future. But I'm rather frustrated, and I have said this more than once, that it seems rather impossible just to have a civil debate, which is what this democracy and government is based on. We are allowed to have different opinions. And we're allowed to try and convince the other's opinion. That's what government is. That's what we're supposed to be teaching our students. That's what we're supposed to do. And I just find it, I'm confounded, and I try to laugh at some things because there's some things that are just so funny, I don't know what else to do. Is just laugh at some of the things that are happening. And you know, we've got a great group of kids, we've got a great staff, you know, we've got great athletic programs, our parents are fantastic, the community is thriving, and yet we still have to have this constant battlement of, I don't know if it's ego or what it is, Mr. Anderson, and board members and staff, administrators rather, not staff. It's just frustrating to me. I spend a lot of energy trying to bring some value to the district, and at every front it just gets pushed away. I'm not trying to micromanage. I'm asked to make decisions. I'm given information. I raise questions, and the world's falling. There's a problem. We can't do it. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm here to ask questions and make a decision because you're asking for my vote. I've said this for 2 years now. So in any case, it's rather frustrating. my apologies to anyone in the community that saw the debate this evening. I did not come here with that intent. My apologies that we had to have that debate as a board, and that I hope the remaining rest of the year will become a little better point of conversation as we close out the beginning of next school year. Thank you.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Well, I guess I second some of what you said, Mr. Petroni. You know, I see a lot of tension out there too. In fact, out there on the district website today, we have some postings there that our senior administrators have put out there. And to me, it looks like a propaganda campaign. It's designed to blame the previous Board of Education for this board's spending. And, you know, that, to me, that's just bad form. To go back there and point to a forecast that's a 2013, October 2013 forecast, which is at this point history. We're now in the fiscal year 2016. And besides that, what's out there is really an argument that doesn't make sense. Because it's a 2-year-old forecast, and the argument basically is if we included a truckload of other spending, then that forecast would have shown that the spending was out of control also. And, well, that's kind of obvious if that forecast included all that stuff, that it would have shown overspending. Now, the previous board is responsible for what it spent, and it's not responsible for what this board's spending. And it's interesting that we don't need the October 2014 budget forecast because we have 2014 actuals and 2015 actuals now. And that's the actual cost, not some budget forecast. 2014, as Mr. Petroni pointed out earlier, the 2014 actual spending was $44.6 million. The 2015 actual spending is $47.8 million. That's $3.2 million more. Those are the actuals. 2013, or 2012, 2013, 2014, we pretty much had a balanced budget. 2015, we got a $2.6 million deficit. 2012, 2013, 2014, we had year-end cash balances between $10 and $11 million each year. Now contrast that with before 2012, when the average cash balance was, you know, $3 to $6 million at the end of the year. And so, you know, to have a $10, $11 million cash balance, you're sitting in a very nice position. But 2015, that last year, that cash balance, as we discussed, went down to $8.3 million. So I just asked myself, why are superintendent treasurer going out there and doing this full court PR press on an October 2013 forecast? I think it's to justify the current spending. But what it's doing is it's trying to shift the responsibility for the current spending to the previous board. And, you know, it's almost could be construed as trying to use board funds to campaign for political interest. And so, Mr. Anderson, I would suggest that we stop that. Because we heard earlier that our administrators are so busy that we got to give them an $8,000 supplemental contract. And the first thing that we can do is to not spend all this effort and time on a 2-year-old budget forecast. The actuals are in. We ought to be spending our time on making the 2016 budget the best that we can do and trying to balance that budget. And so that's my suggestion for the board, is that we stop looking at 2013, we start looking at 2016 and try to figure out how we can get this district to a future point where maybe that we get to the point where that next renewal levy is something that, you know, if we need the $1.3 million reduction in that next renewal, then maybe we get there. But I think that ought to be the bogey and not the 2013 forecast.
Well, I didn't have any comments, but I think my comment would be, you know, it's disappointing when board members make statements about the superintendent, treasurer, that I think anybody out there is going to be able to tune in and see, and they're disparaging at best. I think that's disappointing. I think we have an excellent treasurer who knows what she's doing, knows her business, And I'll agree with you on all the things Mr. Petroni said about community, the schools, the students, the parents. I just don't, for the life of me, I can't understand why we all can't be solution-based. I think in reference, and I'm kind of done talking about all the things in the past. I'm like you, what's in the past is the past, but I think the way it's portrayed from this board table is that a lot of times is that that things just occurred in 2014, 2015, and there was never anything that was done in the previous 2 to 3 years that would lead to this. If you're a homeowner and you choose not to have a car or 2 cars, and instead of running those cars or buying those cars and using those cars, you put the money in the bank, your cash flow is going to look pretty good. Now, I don't know how you're going to get to work, you're going to get around, but if you do that for a year, that's going to look real good. And then the next year, you have to go buy a car. All of a sudden, in the next year, you have to get 2 cars. All of a sudden, your cash balance goes down, and you don't look so good. It's not rocket science. And so I would just say there's a lot of politicizing going on. I think it's less by 2 people who derive their income from, these are their jobs. They have no skin in the game as far as politicking. They're doing what they're supposed to do. So
Why are we doing a full court PR press on 2013?
Oh, Mr.
It's his
Regano,
comment.
you had your comments, and I'll have mine. And so will everybody else, and I'm not interrupting anybody else.
Excuse me.
And you're not going to rebut anything that's said here, but I didn't do that to you. You're going to have that much respect. So, all right. Enough board member comments. Any public announcements?
Yes, actually. The district postcard that goes home this week, there will be information on there about Borough Fest. Hopefully that gets out. It goes out to about 10,000 people. We're trying to do our best to support that. The parents who are heading that up they put in a lot of hours for that, even on the weekends. Also, talking about what Mr. Regano just addressed, we do have specific facts out there, and it's facts. I would ask anyone to take what we've given, take it to a financial person. It's facts. It's not our opinions. It's not something we've made up. It is facts. In order for us to understand where we're currently at and where we're going, we have to understand the past. The past is what put us here with this cash balance. So what we have done is created a question-answer section out on our website. So if anyone has questions about our budgets, because all we keep hearing out there is we need a levy now, we can't afford the contract, new direction of the board. I'm not about any of that. I'm about the reality. And the reality is, here's how much it costs to do education. Here's how much the plans were in 2014. They hadn't been paid out yet. In 2015, we had to pay them out. We had to buy the books. We had to buy the computers, all the things that were praised. So yes, it's going to show we had more expense. So we're happy to answer those questions. If there's folks out there tonight that like us to come out and talk, we're happy to come out and talk. We've met with a lot of people about this. Also, I wanted to speak with the board about, in the future, if we do not need a board meeting, would you prefer us cancel it, or should we just continue? For the public to understand, when all 5 board members are here, these board meetings cost about $1,000 a meeting. So if we're truly going to talk about being fiscally responsible, with the new direction, we've had less board meetings. And what I'm looking at is, if we don't need, like this board meeting tonight, technically we really didn't have to have it. To be perfectly honest, I figured it didn't up this way. So we could have waited and saved money, but we came because we didn't want to change any, because we're getting ridiculed for that. So what I'm asking you is, we're sticking to the plans that we have. We're not changing any board meetings. We're just going to cancel if we don't need them. Or would you guys prefer that we have every meeting as scheduled?
No, I mean, I speak for myself. Mr. Petroni probably has the hardest schedule with travel. But I would just, the only thing I would say is we don't need a board meeting, we don't need a board meeting.
Right.
But I would, in deference to, and Mr. Ogano travels as well, that we have ample time.
Okay.
So that they can plan and supplement those dates with something else.
So typically, we try to get the agenda out by Thursday, if we have a Tuesday meeting. By that Thursday or Wednesday, the week before, we should know if we need a meeting or not. Would that be ample time?
My travel schedule is 30 days out, and I blocked out the time that you had available. I had to rearrange my schedule because for some reason I had this meeting off. So if my attendance is relevant, then if you decide to cancel a meeting on Tuesday and all of a sudden need it the following week, you will not see me in attendance. And unfortunately, I made that clear, I think last December. I said this year is going to be difficult for me. If you'd like me to miss meetings and cancel meetings and try to reschedule, I cannot. I don't have that flexibility. So I've made the best I can with, except for vacation, that I've made the best I can to be at the meetings when they're scheduled. And because I missed a few, I moved on this one. I changed my whole schedule. I tried to schedule it here,
So as long as we don't need to reschedule, we just cancel and then continue with the normal schedule, we're fine.
Right, that's, I guess, been my issue, is that if we don't need a meeting, by all means, cancel it, but don't move it. Skip it, and keep the regular schedule. Now, if there's a special meeting for a special purpose, fine. That's just kind of, how it works.
Yeah.
But rescheduling a regular meeting is something that we should do. We should stick to the regular meeting schedule. If one of the regular meetings isn't needed, cancel it.
Okay.
And,
Lastly, Borough Fest is coming up. That's July 31st and August 1st. I'd love to have each of the board members there, working, socializing, things like that, which would work. We have a dunk booth. I think many of the administrators are involved. They actually have me signed up, and I can sign myself up. So if you would like to be in the dunking booth, you probably create a long line. So if you're interested, let me know. Mr. Stuckey, you probably have a line a mile long. So.
I've been dunked enough over the years.
But it'd be great to have you guys there. I guess we're gonna have bands and pulled pork, and the parents are really doing a nice job with this. We have most of our athletes involved in it, all the athletic teams.
One comment I noticed, like up there at that Shell station, they still have, of course, it's not being used, but they, the committee for the bicentennial put a nice sign up there. It just, it'd be probably easy to put a Borough Fest sign there.
I think they're gonna do a full court press with signage a week or two before.
I just don't see anything around, that's why I was wondering. It's not our concern. Anyway.
It's a good idea. Is it the city property now?
It
The
is.
city of Springboro property? Moved it up.
No, yes.
Yeah, I mean, so
I'm sure we got
it'd be easy to get permission, I guess.
permission.
Yeah.
Sure they would, so. Anyway,
Okay.
so with that, we'll move into work session. You want to take,
If we go
or
to
did I miss something?
public announcements, future considerations.
Oh, future consideration, I'm sorry. Anybody have any?
Yeah, I think that in the future, we ought not waste taxpayer money by putting propaganda out on the website about a 2013 budget forecast when it's 2016. And so let's stop doing it. That's my future consideration. Let's not spend our time worrying about 2013. Let's worry about 2016.
With that, we'll convene for work. How about 5 minutes, about 10 after? Or it's 8 after now. So 5 minutes. Move on to item 10.1, any committee reports?
Not this time.
Item 10.2, Jonathan Wright, building discussion.
Yes.
You want to lead us in that?
Yes, please. And I would like to include Mr. Pennell, our business manager. At the last board meeting, Mr. Pennell brought forth roof repairs at Jonathan Wright Elementary. And since then, at that time, we talked about what were some options with that. when you look back and, again, some of our forecasting, we've been talking about Jonathan Wright for about 3 years, different options with the things that we can do. But the difference was then, we never had any true expenses with the particular building. Now we are starting to have some expenses. So what we'd like to do, and I guess what the board asked is before we go and spend 50, which may be more than 50 now, closer to 100,000, depending on the decking of that particular roof, should we look at other options for that particular building? One of the discussions we had was about demolishing the building so that the land is in existence. We have reached out to a couple people just to get a feel for what that would cost. And we're looking at right now to have it demolished. Any asbestos, you have to go through that. And then, of course, legal fees, we'll probably be around $200 to $225 at most to be able to get that done. We had bids as high as $350. So that's kind of a ballpark for the board to think about. If we sell it, the appraisal value is quite high, but on the market and what it'll actually sell for is totally different. So I guess that would be the start of the discussion. Mr. Pennell has some different law things that he's been investigating that we need to think about since the land was donated to us, that I'd like him to go over with you tonight as well.
One of the things that also needs to be out, is that, there was $44,000 approved at the last meeting for the replacement of the roof material. And unfortunately, as we've gone through, we've been checking for asbestos and other things, which luckily there's none there. But the decking is saturated. It's a gypsum deck underneath. The rest of the roof is either metal or cement, but this one particular roof over the multi-purpose room, which is the same thing that Clear Creek was. So look, if we decide that we're going to fix the building and keep it, we're going to have to come back and do some further discussion about that. So that's just so that you all have everything. One of the other things that is out there, if you decide to sell the building, because it was donated, at least that's my understanding, the land was donated to the district somewhere along the way, and from what I could find on the recorder's website, it was donated finalized on June 28th of 1950. Hazel Eichelberger, I guess, donated it to the school district, Clear Creek local school district. And depending on what the deed says, if it's a straight fee simple donation, then it's not a big deal. If she donated it with any restrictions about it being a school only or something like that, then you would not have the authority to sell it. If we determine that it's no longer used for the school district, it would revert to their heirs. And there's multiple court cases that support that over the years, dating back all the way back to 1929. So that's one consideration as you're thinking about things that we will have to further investigate. We've got to go over to the gray lockbox and get a copy of the deed and take a look to see what that says. So you've got 3 options, I think, that are really realistic. One, you keep the building, you maintain the building, we continue to either be a lessor or we close it down. I would not recommend closing it down. As soon as you close down the building, things deteriorate rapidly. At least right now with a tenant in there, it's someone's every day, so if we do have an issue, we can address it right away. You can sell it to someone, and if we do that, there's a very strict process that we have to go through. First, we have to find out about the deed. Then we have to, minimally, you have to have an auction you have to have a 60-day notification period if we have any charter schools or boarding schools, and there's one other type of school that's in our school district, which I don't believe we have any, but we'd have to research that. They would have a 60-day period to buy it first at a reasonable assessed value. Then we would have to have a 30-day notification of an auction, and then if we don't sell it at auction at a value you feel is reasonable, at that point in time, we could enter into negotiations with someone to purchase the building and the land. You could tear it down. And luckily with the asbestos abatement that was done back in the 90s, there's the minimal amount of abatement that would have to occur, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $25,000 for an asbestos company to do a full survey to make sure we're okay, to make sure that they're there during the demolition, to make sure what's there. Because all the 9x9 tile that's down there is asbestos containing. The mastic that holds it down is asbestos containing. But unless you're driving over it and pulverizing it and all, it's not a big deal. And so we've got that. The quotes that we've got are somewhere in between, $150,000 to $300,000, $350,000 for demolition. And then depending on how we do it, what the requirements are from the city in terms of permitting that demolition, there may have to be some architectural things that maybe have to be submitted and all. This not being an OFSC project, it's a little bit more flexible in terms of that, but the city will have some sort of restrictions on what they require in order for us to do the demolition. So those are the basic three things out there that we can do with it. And I can answer any other questions at this point in time.
John, so the roof's gonna cost maybe $100,000 now?
Correct. It's probably, if we use Clear Creek as a guideline, it's just a few feet bigger than Clear Creek's multi-purpose area, that lunchroom area. That one was $47,000 to replace the deck 2 years ago when I first got here. So they're anticipating probably very similar type of expense. So that plus the $44,000 brings it up to right around,
So
just under 100.
that's almost a third of what it would cost to tear it down, or if we could get, you said up to 350, right?
Right, it's a half to a third of what it would cost to tear it down.
What's the address of the building?
40 Florence Drive. And the auditor's website has the value of the land at $258,776 as of 1/1/2014. The building itself value is $2,494,200. So a total value of $2.7 million approximately. Realistically, it doesn't happen that would get, to be perfectly honest, if you do a sale, it's typically land value, which is what most people are really wanting to pay for that. And it's I know we're different than everybody else, but when we did this in Mount Healthy, we had a building similar size, similar situation. We put it out there for somebody to spend a reasonable amount. Another charter schools in the area wanted it. We put it up for auction. We got nothing basically in the auction. We ended up selling it to a church for $80,000. So by the time you took the $80,000 and the $170,000 it was going to cost to demo the building, basically we got a $250,000 value out of it, which was about the value of the land.
I guess, thanks for your research, the only thing that you've raised for me to put a flag out is that you said this building was donated, this land was donated.
Well, that's my understanding, and that's why I have to research it further. I don't know that for sure, but my understanding from people that have been in the district a long time is that land was donated to the district back in the 50s. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. That's why we have to look at the original deed, which is in the lockbox at the bank. We'll have to go look at that, find out. If it wasn't donated, then there's nothing that we have to worry about now. We can sell it, do whatever we want to do with it.
Yeah,
I just wanted to caution that piece.
No, I guess that would be to me like go to the lockbox tomorrow and find out.
Well, yeah, we will, yeah.
Because if you're,
I had to figure out where it was first. I didn't. So we know it's in the lockbox now. We found that out about 4 o'clock today.
It's
So.
been like an ongoing puzzle over the
Yeah.
past, since we had the last board meeting. Each day something else, learn something else new.
yeah, I guess because if that is the case, then would we, hoping there's no deed restriction,
Right.
but since we haven't been using it for education purposes, do we have a challenge that we have to take up if that deed restriction were such?
Correct. That's a possibility. I mean, that's why I said that. If that is out there, then we have to look at that before we do anything else.
Because, I mean, right now, we have not only the church there, but the food pantry, and we also use it
For
for storage
correct.
of a lot of our educational equipment.
Can you get into the lockbox fairly easy?
Yeah, she actually found the keys, so that's a good
Oh,
thing.
seriously? Okay.
Yeah.
Took forever to get the keys. Is that the infamous key where you and I both had to go
I
sign
was
and?
cleaning out some folders in
Oh.
one of the laterals, and I opened it and pulled one of the things out, and it said lockbox. And then down at the bottom of it, this is the key. So I was like, okay.
I mean, I don't know if this district's ever gonna grow, and that's never really been a good location, I guess, since everything's changed, but there's some changes going on in 73. I don't know if that's gonna make that property more better from an access perspective.
Right.
I haven't seen the plans.
Well, and that's, and, you know, I know the city is, you know, the Shell station is actually owned by the Warren County, they're the ones that bought that for that improvement there at the 73,
Because they're gonna be widening
741, right. But, you know, the city owns the IGA building and all that, so they're looking at doing some things with that area. So if a demolition wanted to occur, you know, there might be something that we can work with the city on to try to do something. But, you know, we have to figure out what direction you want us to take.
We have plenty of time, because most companies we've spoken to are, it's winter time when they do these types of things. Plus, we would need to talk with the community.
We do, yeah.
Get some feedback, and I personally think it'd be great if a couple of us met with the Wright family to talk with them about it as well. And then, of course, we absolutely need to meet with the church and look at their needs and give them plenty of time to make needs so that they can take care of their congregation.
How much income are we getting?
$72,000 a year from the church. Plus, they've done a lot of improvements in the church. They've done some concrete work. They've done a lot of things to improve the sanctuary for what they needed and things like that. So they've spent a lot of money on the building that would, you know, not be able to be.
I thought your yearly expenses were 36,000.
Right about 36,000 for, you know, the heating, cooling, water, you know, all the normal utilities, just the regular upkeep that we have, the HVAC system and keeping what little we have there running.
So right now, we'll know we'll lose probably $60,000 this year.
Right, well, and that's the, you know, we've, you know, in the past, we've gotten that, you know, $30-some thousand as a bonus, but now we're definitely not gonna.
And if I understood you describing the selling process right, we can't just sell it to the church.
Correct.
We would have to go through the notification, first dibs to either a charter school or the other entity you mentioned, I
Right.
forget what it was.
Right, the boarding school.
And then
that's
an
in there.
auction.
Correct. And then at that point, we could enter into negotiation with whoever we wanted.
As we get further along, this might be one of those things that would be very good to have a Saturday board meeting on, to where we could just bring it all together.
In the building,
Yes. So,
I mean, in the building.
good, yes. So, wherever you like, that might be an
But
idea. It's gonna take some time.
But it is, you know, it is something that, you know, having been through this in Mount Healthy and, you know, the one thing we definitely need to do somewhere along the way is make sure that the community has their choice to voice their feelings and, you know, what they would like to see, because, you know, there's a lot of things, like one of the things, the first thing that someone said to me when they heard that this was coming down, you're gonna keep the painting that's right inside the door, correct? And so, you know, it's a painting of the original school that was there. You know, out in the front, you've got the original bell from the original building that was built in the 1800s and the cornerstone from that building. So, you know, those are the things that we have to figure out, what do we do with them? Do we move that down to SI? Do we do that if we decide to sell it or tear it down? Either way, if we stop owning that piece of property, what do we do with certain things? There's not as many things inside the building. A lot of buildings that happens to, there are murals and stuff like that on the walls, and people are worried about that. But the building itself doesn't have quite that much in there. That the one painting, the bell, and the cornerstone in the front are the only things that people.
Well, and it may literally require us perhaps creating some type of contract to hire someone to help us make sure we go through that building historically and pull out the facts. Because it is one of those things, you look at the heritage and traditions of Springboro, you want to make sure you capture everything that's in there. And there are some people, I can think off the top of my head, that would be great at that, to be able to know who to contact, what to research, so that we can pull out what we need.
I would think the Historical Society might be real interested in some of those things.
Correct.
I think I forgot what I was going to ask. Oh, well. I'll think of it again.
If you think of things after, email us, because we really want your opinion on
Right.
this.
And most of the stuff is spelled out within our board policy 7300. You know, most of everything, the only thing that's not in there is that piece about if it was donated or not, but that's the only thing that I know I've been
Yeah,
cautioned.
I remembered what I lost here just a second ago. I just snapped there for a second. Last meeting, when we talked about this, it seemed like there was some degree of urgency to get this roof fixed. Are you
Well-
feeling that same degree of urgency today? Because it's
Correct.
sounding like we have some time to go through a process here,
Well,
but help me out here.
there is an urgency because what has happened, the roof has pretty much stopped leaking only because it's being soaked up by the gypsum deck. So the other concern that we have, that we've talked about is as that deck begins to soak up water, there becomes, you know, there's a hazard there that you know, eventually the deck's gonna give away if we don't do something. So if we go through a process, and it's a long-term process, we're gonna have to re-tarp the roof because the plastic is blown off, and we may have to end up blocking off that multi-purpose area if we need to. Right now, it's not to that degree of concern, but if you go up there, it's separated from all four corners, all four sides of that roof are completely separated by about 1 foot to 2 feet in some areas. So every time it rains, water is being soaked up by the deck. And that's what our concern is. And I was hoping to save the deck so we didn't have that extra expense. That's why I was kind of pushing that. But we're going to have to do something, whether it's temporary or long-term. And a lot of that's going to be dependent upon the direction we get here. If we save it, that's one thing. If we're going to sell it or demolish it, it's another thing. So it is still an urgency to a point, just that we just need to make that decision about where we're headed so that we know what we want to do.
Right.
To make sure that their people are safe in their building, our building.
Well, I'll tell you where I'm at, because I think last time we talked about possibly converting to sports facilities or something like that too. And I think those are all good ideas. But my mind says that this is the kind of thing where, given the historical nature of the building and we want community involvement, it's going to be an extended process. It's the kind of thing I think is maybe even something that you want to have a little committee go and, you know, kind of present options. A committee that's, you know, includes community members and then maybe come up with some options of what they think might be a good use. And then, you know, we start to vet those, but that's going to be, I think, a well-extended process.
Karen DeRosa and I have already started thinking about that, so in terms of a committee process to pull in people's feedback, information, reactions, those types of things. We've already
Maybe
been
include
thinking
the
about
city
that.
planners and those kind of folks who might be able to help us find a, you know, because it is looking like we're not going to ever use it as an educational facility. And so then the question
And
is.
if this is a direction where we don't want to get rid of it and we want to maintain the building and maintain a similar situation to what we have, we're releasing it out or whatever. And I think that, you know, Mr. Petroni a few months ago said, you know, there are places out there that can get you money for historical buildings. We'd have to proceed down there because this would be a long-term thing that we have to do.
The only thing, I don't disagree. I think I would just suggest to everybody that when you say the word historical, it's 1950s. To me, that's not, huh?
It is.
Historical?
The 50s now can become a
I
historical.
was born
Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I think of things in
I don't mean to
the
make
early
you-
1900s.
No, that's really historical, that's really old.
1958 or-
No, I just,
I mean, it's a
yeah.
nice brick building, but to me,
The
it,
50s?
but
No,
anyway,
seriously,
I think it needs all those things, the community and input, and we've already reached out to the city. They're, you know, 3-4 blocks away. Probably in the next couple of years, you'll see significant development up there. It makes, you know, could be good timing, and I think if we do something constructive with it, it can honor the Wright family far more than what's being done now. But I don't think it can be, and not that any board has kicked it down the road, I'm not saying that, but I don't think I think there is some urgency. I walk through it, and I'd worry about people in that common room knowing that soaking up, that's weight. It's gonna go somewhere, someday, and I wouldn't wanna see anybody get hurt in that building, and
So if you
so I
want to
think
walk through, we'll walk through it, no problem.
we have to, number one, be concerned about the tenants, and then, number two, what are we gonna do with the building? So,
Just so you don't feel bad about the historical
yeah,
concept.
you already made me feel bad.
No, I'm trying not to. It is a process, and they might say no, so you may be right, but I've been working with a couple consultants that actually, depending on the architecture, the nature of why it became Jonathan Wright, the history of the community, they actually make cases in 1960s, actually, you can get on the historical register these days. I mean, that's, 50 years, 60 years.
We don't.
I think you have to stop the problem sooner than later. I don't know why you don't try to figure that out. I guess gypsum's like concrete, isn't it? Or is it, what is it, wood?
Well, it's a.
Like a
it's
light concrete? Like a light-
It's a real light concrete, and unfortunately, it absorbs water
It's
as
not
opposed
crumbling?
to.
It's not
No, not yet,
crumbling?
not yet.
Really?
And what happened in Clear Creek, the decking was fine, they were working up there, they're taking off the roof deck. As soon as they started taking the insulation off, that's when the two roofers fell through the roof. So that, that's why it's, I mean, when the roofing company cored that and found out that it was a gypsum rather than a concrete, because the areas that they had looked at were hard because it had dried a little bit, and they thought it was concrete, and it's not, it's a gypsum, which means that it's starting to lose its integrity a little bit. So, and that's why even as we go through this process, we're gonna have to do something with that room, whether it's block it off or whatever, tent it over, whatever we need to do so that everybody's safe in there, and that's the biggest thing.
I guess you guys made a decision to fix something. I tried to stop the bleeding, just.
Well,
like
that's
zero
what,
the
well, at
facilities.
first, we
If
thought it
that's
was a
the decision.
concrete deck, and we do that piece of the roof, will be okay, it'll be good for, forever, as long as we want, then we can go through the
Right, I
process
heard
of
you.
what we want to do, but with the fact that over the last 2 weeks, we found out that the decking is not acceptable, that's what pushes us a little bit farther, that we need to
I got it.
start down the road somewhere.
So now we went from about 50 to close to 100,000.
Too close to 100 for that roof, which is what we ended up paying for Clear Creek's roof.
So, I mean, the question is, do we go ahead and proceed with fixing it? Get someone in to give us a temporary plan? Because clearly if the gypsum board now is
Wet.
wet, the weight on that, even if we put a tarp over it, will decrease the integrity of that as well, so.
I guess Mr. Anderson sort of laid out a situation that you've identified as a potential liability.
Right.
I don't really know, unfortunately, what our options may be outside of you mitigating that risk,
Correct.
in my opinion.
No, I agree.
How you do that, I guess, is, I hate to say it, if it's 50,000 or 100,000, I mean, I don't know if you have any money left in your capital improvements bond, but maybe you've got 100,000 in there for that.
Well, that's what, I mean, we'd have to, that's where the 44 was coming from, so it would have to be 100.
So that's in the bond, it's not part of general revenue then?
Correct.
Not, in theory, a part of general revenue.
Right.
So if anybody has any thoughts, I hope we wouldn't wait till the next meeting, but bring them. We're communicating with the staff Any ideas or suggestions?
I'd say go to the capital improvement fund and stop your liability, and then go to the community and figure out what the plan is. But that's just me.
Well, it's not like you could stop your liability by cordoning off the area, or it sounded like possibly mitigating any further damage. I don't know what condition it's in today, but, I mean,
Right. and
we
that's-
gotta do something, right?
Correct, right.
It's not, I don't think it's necessarily fix it. Maybe it is, but, I don't know that we can sit here
I
and
have
say.
a hard time putting
which it is.
$100,000 into a building, probably.
But if I'm not mistaken, though, the way the policy reads on this particular type of contract, a lot of this decision falls on the board and not necessarily John and I.
With regards to what, fixing the building?
In other words, if we're gonna shut down a room or fix the roof. If we decide to shut down a roof, clearly, the tenants are not gonna be happy about that. So that's gonna have to be something that's mutually agreed upon with the board that we need to look at, that's what I'm saying.
Is this their congregation space?
No, it's theirs, it's their gym stuff.
I can comment if I'm permitted to.
Please.
No, we're using the gym area as our sanctuary. What we're calling the cafeteria, or the room that's in question. The room that's in question, we're calling the cafeteria, which joins the kitchen. We use that as a multi-purpose room. This winter, we run our upper sports ministry basketball program in there. So it is we're using that room probably 4 days a week right now for ministries. So it is a critical area. Now, I share the, we don't want anybody getting hurt either. But to close it off really cripples what we're using the building for now.
That's what I figured, that's what I brought that up.
Okay, thanks. Any other discussion? Any other business? Mr. Beecher?
Not this time.
Any public participation? Anybody on work session items? Do we need an executive session?
No, sir.
Okay. And a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We'll just adjourn.